Hey everybody, and welcome to the Green Witch Homestead. So not much has happened in the last couple days. We had a bit of a head cold, chest cold come through our house, as you can probably tell by the sound of my voice. Everybody's good though, we're all recuperating and just laying low and staying warm. It is getting close to seed starting time, which means it's time for us to delve into what seeds we need to be looking for and getting stockpiled for the victory gardens. We're going to go through that today, and that way you guys can have your lists and get ready to start shopping for seeds, because it's coming up quick and this is the time of year you want to get your seed orders in, especially if you're ordering them off online stores. One accomplishment I did want to share is I made a pie crust completely from scratch. For me, it's not just that I made the pie from scratch, it's that I actually used lard in the crust for the first time. No butter, no shortening, no fake product of any kind, just the lard from our pig, the stone ground flour from the Amish store, and an egg from my backyard, and a splash of vinegar. And I'll tell you what, learning the new measurements and the temperatures and the times required for baking, it has been entertaining, but there is no comparison. I will never make a pie crust without lard ever again. It is amazing. I will do a video on it next time I make one. This was a first for me, so I had to learn it myself, and now I feel confident enough to share the recipe. So look forward to that one. But in the meantime, let's get into seeds. This is a list of your early plants that you're going to need, so feel free to pause it here and go over this list, write down what you're going to need. On that list that I just provided you, you're going to notice that's not all the plants that are going in the garden. I will have a list later in the video of the second harvest crops, so that you can have a list of those seeds as well. But these ones, I put them first because if you can't do both seed purchases all at one time, this is the one you want to concentrate on. This is the one that's going to require a little bit more actual plants and plant starts than just the seeds. The biggest of those being things like asparagus, berry bushes, and potatoes. Also onions. Onions are going to be the longest to get started, so if you haven't started onions from seed already, I would recommend ordering sets or starts. The other thing with the potatoes is they require a little bit of prep before you can plant them. You can just toss a potato in the dirt, but it's not going to give you the best harvest, so you want to chit your potatoes, which is cut them into pieces with 1 or 2 eyes on them, and then you have to prep that for a little bit, let it dry first. So this list is the one that you want to focus on and make sure that you're getting all of your supplies from it as soon as possible. Traditional victory gardens will break things up into succession planting, which is why I kind of like the idea of teaching you guys a victory garden, because this is kind of a great way for beginners to get into gardening. Everything's laid out for you, everything's planned out for you, and you learn the different things of why you're growing certain vegetables, what vegetables can grow next to each other without any problems, as well as how to succession plant, when to plant things, when to harvest things, to make sure that you're getting a harvest all year long. The early crops are going to be ones that are eaten mostly fresh out of the garden. The later crops are the ones that you're going to use for storage purposes. So without further ado, let's delve into the garden layout, where things go and when. This is the early garden layout. We're going to start with 4 rows of potatoes, followed by 2 double rows of snap peas. Then you want a single row of cabbage. You can double row of carrots and beets, half a row each. A double row of greens like spinach, chard, or mustard, your choice. Then your tomatoes are going to go in. How many you have depends on how many people you're feeding and what you're doing. Followed by your peppers. Then you're going to put in radishes, lettuces, and onions next to the house. Another one up next to the house is going to be your perennials like asparagus or rhubarb or any other type of vegetable you choose to have come back every year. Follow that with 3 rows of some type of pole bean, 4 rows of sweet corn along the back fence, and then lima beans or other type of drying bean at the front to finish off your summer garden. You also want to put in some type of berries on the inside of your fence by your house. Now you may have noticed we did not have summer squash in here, like zucchini and stuff like that. You can supplement zucchini in where the lima beans were if you prefer those instead. You may have noticed that I did not put everything in order from one side of the garden to the other. I basically put them in where they should go in the gardens, and you're seeing them in the time that you would plant them out in the garden. So you would start in the order that we suggested. Now, a lot of them will be planted at about the same time, and all of that depends on your area and your growing season, which we will get into in further videos when we're actually putting stuff out into the garden. As of right now, this is just a layout and a planning to help you see where everything goes and get an idea of what you're going to need for this victory garden. At this stage, we're going to switch over and show you what you would do for the late garden after most of the harvest has been done from the early garden. So we're going to start the screen over with all of the plants that would have been harvested already removed. The things that you're going to notice is tomatoes will still be there because tomatoes are going to be an all summer long thing. So go ahead and pause it here. These are the plants that we haven't already covered that will be going into the late garden. Some of the plants you will notice will repeat themselves. The placement of the plants in the late garden is based on when the harvest in that spot comes out. So when you harvest whatever is in the spot is when you would plant your next row for that area. So this is where it's crucial to keep track of what goes where. For example, the first thing that you're going to see on here is bush beans, and they're going to go where the potatoes were. As you pull the potatoes out, you would put bush beans in. Slate is cleared of everything except for the perennials that are going to stay and the tomatoes, which will grow all season long. So the first thing we're going to put is 4 rows of green bush beans, then 2 rows of winter squash along the fence. With your winter squash is going to be any type of storage squash, so acorn squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash, pumpkins, all those ones that have the hard rinds that are going to store throughout the winter. So if you remember, we had corn in this space of the garden. Winter squash can be started from seed in the beds underneath the corn. Now we will get into more details on when and how to do that in that video once we get closer to that point. But that's just one thing to remember with the succession planting in this spot. The winter squash and the corn will be growing for a little bit at the same time. Next, we're going to have 3 rows of late potatoes, followed by 2 rows of late storing cabbage. We're also going to redo the double half rows of carrots and beets, just flip them around this time so they're not in the same spot. Then we're going to have 3 rows of turnips, a double row of spinach, and then 2 double half rows of kale and collards to round out the winter garden. You're also going to replant lettuce and radishes in that small little plot right by the garden gate. Well, that's basically your victory garden layout. This will feed a family of 5 depending on the size. Obviously, the size of plot that you're going to do and length of rows depends on you and how much space you have and how many people you're feeding. So those will change, and they are unfortunately not anything that I can concrete set for you because it depends all on your personal needs. But that's the victory garden. That's start to finish. Hopefully this video will give you a good idea of what you're getting into, what you need to look for and purchase right now. Make sure that you are getting out there. If you're purchasing your seeds online at stores like Baker's Creek or at My Gardener, make sure that you're getting out there and looking now, because if you want specific varieties and colors of things that go quickly, they may sell out before you get a chance to get them. Everybody's starting to buy their seeds, so this is why we're putting the video out today, to help you get ready so that you know what you need to get for your victory garden before it's too late. I cannot wait till we start breaking ground on this. I'm really excited to take you guys along on this victory garden. I really do hope that you guys are joining in and planning out a victory garden. Let me know down in the comments below if you are growing a victory garden with us this year. I'd love to hear about it and what things that you would like to plant. Remember too, these are not set in stone. If there's something in here that you don't like, you can change it out for something else. These are the traditional victory garden recommended plants based on their nutrient value and all of the things that a family in North America would need to sustain themselves healthily throughout the season. The biggest thing that you're probably going to notice is there is no herb garden. There's no garlic, there's no flowers. This is just a basic vegetable patch. Now, this is taking into consideration that a lot of people at the time would have a separate, smaller kitchen garden closer to the house where they would grow those things like herbs and spices. And garlic is usually planted around the outside edge of things to help prevent pests like moles and voles. So those are other things that you can add, you can take advantage of. Also, adding things like marigolds and nasturtiums and other flowers around the borders or interspaced in the rows are always things that you can do, little personal touches that you can add to your victory garden. Feel free to tweak it to your liking. This is just to give you an idea of what you need and help you get your list started so we can grow on time and get everything out into the garden. Stay tuned for our Victory Garden updates in the future. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell for notifications so you know when we upload all of our tutorials and other information here on our farm. Thank you so much again for watching, you guys, and remember, get your hands dirty.